Unit 1 provides background information on the very beginning of art in France, as well as the vast cultural changes that occur in France during this time. The first section of this unit is prehistory, which tells how the remains of the Neanderthal and other early humans have been found in France. This section addresses the earlier forms of art, which include painted rocks and jewelry. Paintings depicting thousands of animal figures were found at the Cave of Lascaux, giving an excellent example of early art. After prehistory, the Celts invaded Gaul, which led to a more sedentary lifestyle. This group was known for producing iron weapons, which were used in warfare. The Greco-Roman period of France had great influence on both art and culture for a long time after its end. After trading with places like Greece, Gaul was soon Greek-dominated. This greatly shaped art during this time, with evidence still existing today of the Greek coins that inhabited Gaul. Later, the Romans annexed Gaul and in turn built many technologies that are still standing today. The Roman influence on France during this time helped to stabilize Gaul and shape French culture. One of the greatest pieces of Roman architecture still standing today in France is the Roman Theatre at Orange. Unit 2 covers in detail the Middle Ages and the various artistic influences that formed in this time, which include religion and the different rulers that came into power. Some of the most prominent leaders of this time include Clovis and Charlemagne. With the advent of the feudal system, competition over resources became even more crucial and the social hierarchy was further developed. Characteristics such as leadership and military affiliation were valued at this time, which was often reflected onto medieval art, whose characteristics also depict times of great instability. Christianity grew with popularity, which helped to create a conflicting value system of war and religion. Art during this time reflected the rise in Christian values, with paintings and sculptures often displaying crosses and representations of Christ. Art also focused on the importance of military power with the depiction of horses in battle scenes. The Renaissance was a time of rebirth and increased self-expression that was brought on by the end of the 14th century, which encompassed a dark era, including the plague and war. The Renaissance spread to France from Italy and was a movement that characterized many parts of Europe. Humanism is an ideological system that became very popular during this era, as it emphasized the human virtues through the studying of classical works by Aristotle, among others. Art during the Renaissance focused on the celebration of the self, which is clearly seen in many of the art forms during this time, as nudity was very common. Similar to the Renaissance, the Enlightenment is known for stimulating thought throughout France. The Enlightenment, however, focused on the abandonment of religion and focused on politics, which ultimately led to the French Revolution. At this time, the monarch was oppressing the French through food shortages, high taxes, and leaders who did not work in the interest of the citizens. The French Revolution sought to overthrow the monarch, which was ultimately reflected in much of the art at the time. Art during the French Revolution depicted many of the bloodiest scenes of the war, ultimately reflecting France's long road to complete freedom and equality. During the 19th century, ties with Prussia became tense and France lagged behind many other European powers in war technology. At this time, France experienced an abrupt industrial revolution, which had been postponed due to Napoleon's leadership over the country. At this point in time, France's culture varied in different regions, and the industrialization of the country created a divide between the urban and rural areas. Art during this time not only reflected France's war involvement, but it also demonstrated France's entrance into the Industrial Revolution. The 20th century in France was a time when France experienced massive diversity from French colonies in Africa and other locations. Much of what occurred during the 20th century in France is reflected in today's art and other aspects of culture. In addition, many of the most important reforms took place during this time, which include incorporating democracy in education, as well as the women's rights movement. Some of the most popular forms of French art during the 20th century include Cubism, Surrealism, and Post-Impressionism, which dominated the end of the 19th century.